Thank you for Patreon now for donating to the Patreon.
Hey guys, it's Vandeals back in the Card 5 Vanguard deck profiles. Enjoy, don't like, subscribe, and small start, shall we? This time we're covering Brandt Eredogrema deck. So this is set 7. If you don't know who Eldobreath is, that is the grade 3 that Bushy randomly dropped on us like Barfometus. That happens to be a really good grade 3. So I decided to make a deck around it using stuff we have from set 7. Now I want to let this be clear. In the time span of putting this onto the slides, and then the time span of me realizing what this deck is actually going to do, I kind of had like ideas of I think I should change this because based off of how I played with it, I feel like I could afford to take some risk with it, but this is the more safe version. The other version would technically win more. I guess possibly be more consistent, but at the same time less consistent. So let's go and get the start shot when you can see what I mean. First up, we have our starter in Blitz mechanic, Warton. I know it's pronounced Warton. I don't fucking care. Listen, the theme is German from this ride line, and I'm allowed to say it how I want to. I'm gonna call it Warton because I like saying the V letter. Anyways, good zero boost, 5k, shows escape base, on run a point, 1 second, draw a card. Standard starter, not much about it. And the best part about this is this ride line in particular, because there's absolutely no ride line for Eredogrema. You have to use any ride line really. So make this any ride line you want. I just chose Warton because he's my favorite grade 0 out of all the lines from Brandt. So yeah, really make this any starter though. None of the ride line I'm running requires it. So yeah, take that as you wish. It's a free draw if you want second. Then we have our Overtrigger and Star Dragon Deity of Infinitude, Eldobreath, or as I like to call it, thing that every fucking person gets when they have, or PTSD everyone gets for when they fucking play against Cubisia, because we all know this has come down against us at one point or another. So go to a boost, 50k shield, 5k power, Overtrigger, you mail in one Overtrigger in your deck, reveal the trigger with a card, draw a card, choose one supposed to be for the turn, and you reveal it during a draft check, activate additional effect, which is double the power and critical of all front row units until end of turn, on your field by the way, and increase the power to double and critical when activated. Okay, so essentially what this means is someone's hitting 2 million with at least double critical, and everyone else on your front row is also double critical, and one of them is probably somewhere in the 40s. So at the very least, like Eldobreath honestly is a good over this act. It just makes it so that all your fucking units become, you have to guard, otherwise you're dead. And the critical pressure, well, you get the point. Critical pressure is hell, especially when you have a restanding vanguard and a restanding rear guard. So one of Eldobreath in the main deck, you know, you can only run Overtrigger, but yeah, we all know this is like hell to fight against, so why not? Then we have our normal triggers. We have 3 copies of a regular critical and Star Aggression Dragon, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Then we have 4 more crits and Patrol Robo Decker Cop, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power. Critical trigger auto right down about it boosted, put it to soul tuning, gives us 2 for the turn, so great, you know, adding 2k more and increasing soul count, which does end up coming in a little useful here and there with the deck that has a little bit of soul problem, so 4 Decker Cop, nice to have. And then we have 4 draw triggers and Amulet Connector, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, draw things guard circle, opponent's vanguards are great to get plus 5k shield, so cool, so 10k shield, which is really nice to have, not to mention the fact it's a draw trigger increasing your hand amount, and once you see how many orders this deck runs, if you don't know what Eredogrema does, then you will understand why that draw is very helpful. And then we have our 4 regular heals and Alternate Spear Dragon, grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 5k power. We all know why at this point I don't run the effect heals. If you don't know why, then I'm going to assume you're new and I'm going to explain it for you. And that's because I feel like they're way too gimmicky in my opinion, because one of them only works if your opponent is swinging with a unit that has attacked already once this turn and it's attacking for at least a second time. It's not that if a unit on your opponent's board stood, is if that unit that did stood or is attacking for a second time is the one that's currently attacking, because if it's not, then cool, your 15k doesn't fucking do shit. And then the other one being like the crit one, so like I'd rather not, especially because they have less shield. So in those situations, if your opponent ends up forcing out more guard than you expect before you have to drop those for the better guard, you may end up dropping more guard in general. Like I remember I watched a Flagberg player just totally outplay someone who had like 4 of the effect heals in hand, and they dropped so much unnecessary shield because, like, you know, they were forced into a situation where they had to lose all their effect shields, and sucks for them basically. So I'd rather have the 4 heals, which is a 15k all the time, instead of just a possible 25, but on the basis a 10k shield, so 4 of the heal. Now move on to our grade 1s. So this is one of the cards you can change if you want to, but for the record, for Eredogrema, you need 5 orders, so I made it the limit, 5 orders. So through 3 copies of Incandescent Flame Cannon Abyssal. So grade 1 normal order, or sorry, set order. At set order's play, put it to your order zone and operate auto order zone. When this card is operate, choose an opponent's rear guard in the front row, murder, and if you did not retire, draw a card to card from hand discard it. Okay, this will rarely go off, because there's only 1 card in this deck that can operate, and frankly, I barely draw it, and even when I do draw it, it's kind of tempted just to throw it away immediately. But in the case where you do operate, it's a free murder of a rear guard. Now, the reason why it's this order and nothing else specifically is because all the other grade 1 orders are either being ran in this deck, or they're just not that good, or there's very little to begin with, so might as well run a Abyssal, which is for free set, and not to mention come back at any point in history to help us. Also, The other part about it is I run this over maximum because, like, I don't know, I just feel like this is easier to pull off. But with the experience I play with this deck and the wording on how maximum works and the wording on how the other grade 2 order works that benefits from maximum, this deck can technically pull out double maximum in theory if you have both the Counterblast and the Soul in the hand to do it. So take that as you will. Do you have a Vassal? Then we have another order. This is our last grade 1 order. There are more orders in total, and that is 4 copies of Neatness Meteor Shower. Okay, listen, you can change anything you want in this deck when it comes to your turn building it, but I do suggest you keep this because this has actually been proven useful. So after set orders play, put it to order zone, no cost. You may have up to 16 copies of this in deck. I was so tempted to do that until I realized that Eredogrema said it has to be different orders, so I immediately scrapped that idea. Auto is put into your order zone. You may soul charge 1, so it's not a 4 soul charge, but if you want to, great, free soul charge. And then if it's put by your Vanguard's ability, you may draw a card. I like how because for the record, the day I recorded that Gravidia deck profile, or like the day it went up, that same day, the reveal of Eredogrema came out, and I just like laughed my ass off that, I remember in that video, at least I'm pretty sure, or at least I know I thought about it, was like, I wish we had more cards that would trigger that effect more often, but we don't. I like how Bushy gave me that card the same day, and I didn't even have to ask for it. So, yeah, all around good skill. I like having that free soul and free draw if you really need it. Again, neither of them are mandatory. You may use it if you want to. And then always put it from your drop to your order zone. From your order zone into your drop zone. Choose an opponent's rear guard, kill it. That will never happen, because this deck doesn't send orders to drop zone, it sends them back to deck. So, sucks that ability is never going to go off, but on the bright side, you're getting a free soul charge and a possible free draw if you're using Eredogrema's skill to get into order zone. Otherwise, you're just getting a free soul charge, which isn't that bad, so 4 gives me a shout. It definitely comes in handy, especially in a deck where soul kind of tends to be a problem every now and again, and the free draw, all I can say is I wish I saw this off Eredogrema's skill more often, so 4 as it is. Then we have 4 PGs in our Planet Wall Dragon grade 1 boost, 5k 0 shields, 6k power. I got all that wrong except for the power. Continues to know 4 deck and auto is put on guard circle, choose from you because it cannot be hit by battle. It cannot be hit to end of battle. If I could talk, please. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from hand and discard it. Okay, great. So it's a good skill nonetheless. You can be as aggressive as you want in the early game, and that means even if you have only one other hand card, you place this PG down instead of having discard like you would in the old days. You can just throw the PG down after discard, which is amazing because that makes sure that you have defense, even if you go all out in the aggressive, and that is helpful. If you know what this deck is capable of. If you've seen the match, because by the way, I'm recording this after the match and I plan on having these both go up at the same time. If you saw the match first, you know why I'm saying that ability is helpful. If you haven't saw the match yet, let's just say this. Guarding power is scarce in this deck. That's all I'm going to resort to. So, 4 of the PG, nice to have, good card, and is the sole reason why this deck lives as long as it does. 4 of. Also, if you're wondering why I don't run the Blitz PG, it's because I don't like it. Like, when push comes to shove, especially in this deck, like this deck especially, other decks I have this style with, but like in this deck mainly, I need every unit I can get my hands on because it's part of my playstyle just to call PGs randomly because I like to fucking call PGs just to fuck with people. But yeah, no, like even here, this is actually one of those times where it does matter because that PG is only good in situations where your opponent specifically has triple drive, not +1 drive that equals triple drive. It has to be triple drive the ability. So yeah, I'd rather have this that's good all around unless they have Sentinel Restrictors compared to an order that only does good when they have Sentinel Restrictors and that they don't have triple drive. So for a Planet Wall, just good to have in my opinion. Then we have our last grade 1. Yeah, so if you noticed, there's only 1 grade 1 unit card. That's why I made this the PG. But anyways, 1 copy in the main deck. So yeah, 1 copy in the ride deck, no copies in the main deck of Cardinal, Noid, Rotis. So grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. All knows put it on Vanguard, search it for 1 road card, put it to your hand, or reveal it, put it to your hand, shuffle your deck, and then continue to regard during the battle of the attack or boost. If your road is Dark Knight or Abyssal, Dark Knight gets +2. Okay, that ability never go off because there's no way to fucking call from soul from this deck, and even if there was, you are never going to be an Abyssal Dark Knight or Dark Knight. I mean, you might be for grade 2 term, that's it, because that requires you to only have worlds in your order zone. And I'm gonna tell you this right now, I actually did think about the ride line for a bit, or at least the grade 2. The grade 1 was kind of easy for me because I'm not running Prison, if that wasn't already clear, so obviously kind of Blue's out the way. I wanted to run the Ava one, but considering it specifically has to ride upon the grade 2, and the grade 2 specifically needs the grade 3, then I decided, yeah, that's not happening. And then there was the Hero ride line, and the Hero ride line does absolutely nothing outside of getting the base, and honestly I can't use the base because my Vanguard wouldn't be a hero. And then, what was the other ride line? There was another one. Oh yeah, Welstra. The grade 1 would be useful, and that's pretty much it, so might as well get Rutus, who gets me a world card to hand. So yeah, 1 of Rutus in the ride deck. It's just good to have. Then we have our grade 2 orders. So first up, we have 3 copies of Experiment Successful. So the Evil Order did stake its way in here somewhere, somehow. Grade 2 set order, standard set order play, put it to order zone. Auto was put into your order zone by any means, whether it's by Vanguard ability or not. Get a free draw, just card from me and discard it. And then if your order zone has 3 or more research cards, that would imply you damage checked none of them and you somehow hit all of them at the same time. Soul Blast 1, choose an opponent's rear guard, bind it. So, plus side. In the rare, very rare occurrence, you can get all three of them into the order zone. You kill rear guard and you draw. Downside is, and you discard 2. Downside is that most likely will only go off once unless you somehow, by God's miracle, rode Eredogrema and the top 5 revealed all 3 copies of this, and then in that case you need to go pray to whatever heavenly being you believe in and then flip your opponent off and say, listen dude, I'm gonna fucking win this game, and then proceed to kick their ass in every way, shape, and form because you're about to sack triple crits. So all around, experiment successful, nice order. I just wish it went off more because most of the time it's just a draw discard, but it gets rid of opponent's rear guard if you have 3 of them, so why not run as a 3 of? Then we have 3 copies of Eclipsed Moonlight. So my personal favorite order in this deck. Grade 2 set order, your standard set order play thing. Play it by counterbalancing 1, or if you just put it via Eredogrema's ability, you play it for free. Auto one is put into your order zone, call Shadow Army token to rear guard. Yes, we run Shadow Army tokens, and now that I remember it, I completely forgot to put Shadow Army tokens on this, so I'll be right back. So those 15k B6 are really helpful, and then the ability that will rarely ever go off is Continuous Order Zone. If your order zone has only world cards, the following effects are active according to the number of cards in your order zone. 1 card, your world becomes Dark Knight. 2 or more cards, your world becomes Abyssal Dark Knight. Okay, so for the record, even though it just says cards, again, it also specifies on there the only cards in your order zone have to be world cards. Meaning, if this and this are in your order zone, you're not in Abyssal Dark Knight or Dark Knight, you're just in neither because you have more than a world in your order zone. So, it's nice to have. It gets your rear guard in the early game, and typically what I like to go with my grade 2 ride line, just to, get that free call, but, yeah, there's nothing really more to say about this. It's good to have. Being an Abyssal Dark Knight or Dark Knight really doesn't fucking matter because none of the deck requires it. So 3 of Eclipsed Moonlight, just good to have. Then we have 3 copies of our last order, thank God, and that is Howling Moonlit Night. So grade 2, set order, set order play thing. Play it by Soul Blasting 1, or just for free with Eredogrema. Autos put into your order zone by any means, draw a card, great, and then the Abyssal Dark Knight thing. So again, this will never go off, or the Abyssal Dark Knight thing will never go off, but being able to just get a free draw is also fucking amazing, and, combo with Eredogrema, if you somehow see all 3 of them, which is a miracle in itself, you get 3 free draws. But, yeah, all around, these are my favorite orders in this deck. You could swap out orders. I think the ones I would honestly swap out are probably this one for that 1 grade 2 order that just says all your grade 2s get boost, and then maybe I drop the order count by a little bit so that there can be more norm units ran, because for the record, there's only 4 other norm units, one of them being the grade 3, 2, and then the other 3 being grade 2s. So yeah, I think I'd probably run that order and then just duck my order count a little lower, but honestly this deck works for what it is, so yeah, that's our orders. And then we move on to our grade 2s. 3 copies of the reason that I have to justify this thing's existence, and that is 3 copies of Blitz Engineer Hoflio. Grade 2, intercept 5k shield, AK base. Auto is placed on rear guard if you do not operate a product card this turn. By counter blasting 1, slow blasting 1, choose a product card in your order zone, operate it. Okay, technically, Esquire would be better. The reason why I don't run Esquire, she gets rid of attackers. Because she has to rest herself. Although she would be more consistent in pulling off that ability, she would involve me resting her, meaning I get less attacks, and the whole point of killing that rear guard was basically for nothing. So I'd rather run this. I mean, if I ran the, maximum station instead of the Abyssal, then technically I would feel better running a Scrya because I'm getting the attack anyways. But anyways, yeah, so operating the order is amazing, and then continues rear guard during turn. If you operated a product this turn, it gets plus 5k. So cool, 13k. Again, I say, this deck does not have its optimal ability. If you want, this is the more consistent version in my opinion. If you want the more power-based version, but ever so slightly less consistent, I would say swap this out for 3 maximums, but be aware that that's pretty much a dead card in your hand until you manage to get it back into your deck. And then immediately swap this out with 3 copies of Esquire, so 1, you have more boosters, and 2, you have a more consistent way of pulling off the order. So 3 Hoflio or Scry, depending on what your incandescent flame cannon thing ends up being. So yeah, take that as you will. And then this card is also interchangeable depending on what orders you run, and that is 4 copies of Armed Panzer. So Great Turn, 5k shield, 10k base, continues rear guard for your order zone as a set card. It gets boost, sorry. So, being a 10k booster is great. Like I said, this deck basically changes how you want it to. If you want to run the maximum, I think in my opinion, the one that gets more power, you run maximum over Flame Cannon, so you run a Scrya over this, and then instead of one of these orders, you run the the replenishment dock, whatever it's called, you know, the one that gives all grade 2s boost, and then you change this out for the grade 2 that sends set orders back to deck to get you a free draw, so if Maxima ends up in your hand, it's not a dead card because you can just discard it and shuffle it back. That's how I see it you should do it if you want it to be more powerful, but this deck is far more consistent in the sense that, you know, it has fucking rear guards and doesn't rely on me getting really lucky, considering the only way to get the maximum into the order zone would actually be to rip it off of Eredogrema's skill. So for Heavy Iron Panzer, it's a good grade 2, and I like it, and there's no reason not to run it as a 4 for that reason. Then we have our last grade 2 and the second to last card in the deck, which is one copy of Cardinal, Noid, Cubisia. Obviously not in the main deck, only one in the ride deck. Grade 2 and step 5k shield, 10k base. Auto van, when your world is put into your order zone, choose one of your units, gets +5 for the turn. Great, and continues to regard your turn for your world as Abyss of Dark Knight, gets +5. That ability would never happen because, like I said earlier, there's no way to call from Soul. If there was, that would rarely happen because you would rarely have only the 2 worlds in the order zone. But then also the fact of getting the free 5k. Here's the reason why Cubisia is here. I literally ran through every grade 2 as an option. I couldn't think of a better reason to ride over in Cubisia. So Razat Pink, she's only useful if you have stuff in prison. Cubisia, obviously the world thing. We have the World Searcher. The Ava grade 2, which I really wanted, only works if it's rode upon by the grade 3 Ava. And then the grade 2 of Welstra's line, Uber, that's what his name is. Uber, he requires you to have the grade 1 incandescent flame cannon in your order zone. And if you don't have that in your order zone, he's essentially a vanilla. And I mean, granted, and plus he doesn't really get you, like, I mean, he deck thins for orders, and that's pretty much it. And then finally we came down to, well, there was one more option. Oh yeah, Gravadia's, which I wanted to run. The reason why I didn't run Barbringer is because I thought, like, oh, Soul Blast 3, that's easy. All I have to do is just go first and mulligan for the crit trigger that goes to Soul. Yeah, till I realized that it also requires you to have a fucking Meteor in your order zone. Yeah, I don't know how many people, like, knew that. I mean, for me personally, I never fucking knew it had to have a Meteor. Like, I always just assumed that's how it has to work because, you know, that's your way of getting a soul, so it never really bothered me. But, whew, now I realize what people mean by, like, you really do whiff if you don't hit a Meteor. Because not only do you not get the soul charge, but if you had the soul for Gravadia, you ain't fucking doing its skill because you don't have the Meteor to pull it off. So, yeah, that's why we ran Cubisia. Sadly, no Barbringer, but what you gonna do about it? One of in the ride deck for Cubisia, and I can't think of their names. And then we have our last unit in the deck, or at least in the main deck, which is our main grade 3. Obviously, the card that all of us think should probably be a finisher and would work really well in Orphis and okayish in Gravidia, and that is Whipperling Quake Monster, Eredogrema. So this hypnotic-looking kaiju motherfucker, who I really thought was supposed to be for the new kaiju line of set 8, is a grade 3 turn 13k base. Always placed on Vanguard Circle, reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, and put all set orders from element to your order zone, shuffle your deck. My favorite part about this skill is it's fucking free, meaning that if you place it on Van, and you get lucky enough to have all 5 be orders, all those go into the order zone for free, no cost on his skill, no cost on their skills, meaning you can get a possible free draw, free Shadow Army token, maybe even another free Shadow Army token, free soul charge and draw, and maybe even a draw and a discard and possibly a bind. Like, all around, it's an amazing skill just for that alone. I wish it was partially rearguard too, but hey, amazing skill just for that alone, getting that top 5 free search. And then auto Vanguard at the end of the battle of this attack by choosing any number of set orders from your order zone. If you choose 3 or more cards with different card names, choose a rear guard, stand it, and if you chose 5 or more cards with different card names, stand this unit as well, so both of them stand, and this unit gets +10 and -2 drives for the turn, and return all cards from your order zone chosen with this ability to the deck. So, 23k, no drive sadly, possible persona right, so 33, and you stand 2 units. Amazing. I love that skill. I think it's fucking amazing. You know, getting the double restand possibly, the extra power. Downside is, this deck consistently cannot hit 5 orders on first grade 3 turn, and it barely does it on second grade 3 turn. Like I said before, this deck has the consistency to do it, it just doesn't have the power. The deck I meant, like the cards I told you to switch out earlier, that would give it the power to kill people, but it might lack the consistency to get it done enough because, you know, you might end up seeing maximum too often and not get into order zone, which sucks. So, yeah. I say be a little bit wary of that, but I love Eredogrema's, I already said it wrong. I already love his skill though. Getting that search, getting the power, getting the restand, and I tried to see what Falling Hellhauser would do with this, but if I remember correctly, it was like a ruling where it had to go to drop, and sadly he sends them to deck, which fucking sucks, but whatever. So, Eredogrema is just a good grade 3. I love it so much. I think its art's amazing, and getting that restand's good, so 3 of them in the main deck, 1 of them in the ride deck. And then we have our last card in the deck. It's just the 3 Shadow Army tokens. We all know what these are. They have no shield. They're grade 1s with boost. They have 15k power. Really, what you do with them in this deck is you play this order, or this order, you call it, and then you swing with it, and then your opponent most likely kills it because they're smart and they know the 15k will be the reason they lose. So, take that as you will. You don't really need 5. Frankly, you just need 3 because you're only ever going to play it a total of 3 times. But, you know, in case you manage to keep shuffling this into your deck and then keep calling it, then yeah, take that as you will. But yeah, you don't really need more than 3. But just in case, you want the 5. That's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, this deck is fun to play. I mean, it hasn't won at all yet, but that's also because I'm only choosing to use Eredogrema's skill when I get to 5 orders. Like, I actively refuse to use its skill otherwise. So, I'm pretty sure if I were to actually try to win with it, I probably could. It's still a good deck, though. You know, it has the... It lacks the rear guards, I guess is what we can say. It lacks the rear guards, it has the consistency, and it lacks the power. But, like, there's a way to make it so where it has the rear guards and it has the power, but it possibly lacks the consistency. So, yeah, this deck is like, it has 3 things, and you only ever get 2 of them at once. So, without further ado, I'm going to end it here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.